Now then, YouTube, back with another video. Going to be reacting to Carl Benjamin, otherwise known as Sargon of Akkad, on his Akkad Daily channel. I'll put the link in the description, and we'll just get straight into this one.
With that, let's begin. So you'll remember the other day that I did this video on Lindy West about how everything's gone terrible and she's constantly getting cucked by her polyamorous husband, and she feels terribly depressed whenever she realizes she's massively overweight and would actually like to lose the weight. Now, in the era of Ozempic, that seems eminently more possible, doesn't it? And maybe she wants to actually think about doing that and then divorcing her husband who's constantly cheating on her. That's terrible. That's absolutely terrible. Honestly, I really hate it.
Yeah, I mean, adultery is bad. You shouldn't be doing it. Wouldn't maybe go as far as recommending divorce. I would recommend making the marriage work, but yeah, definitely cheating is bad. Do not be cheating.
That she's in such a horrible position. But there was this great article by Helen Lewis on Lindy West, and this provoked some reactions. Now, we'll go through some of it because it's actually really interesting the way she characterizes it. And you know what? I'm pretty sure I mentioned it, but it is pretty great to see how what she calls millennial feminism has destroyed itself, which is why, as she says, so many women who consider themselves left-wing have parted ways with millennial feminism because it basically became really, really toxic, right? As she says, it's one thing to set rigid and unforgiving rules of human conduct. It's quite another to expect anyone to live by them. What killed
feminism has always presented a set of unrealistic rules that only ever be negative for society. It's one of the main reasons I've always pushed back. Well, not always, I would say. I've always pushed back against feminism, then turned into pushing back against socialism and general leftism. General, sort of set of rules that they wish for us to live by. Not suitable and, not even really based in reality, if I'm quite honest with you.
Millennial feminism was the gap between what its high priestesses demanded and what they were able to endure themselves. If you insist that accepting polyamory is the price of being a good person, and then write a book about your throuple where the front cover shows you with mascara streaked tears running down your face, people will spot the dissonance. And that's exactly what we were talking about in the last video.
Yeah, I mean, that's cringe. Why would you do that? I should say, West Evernotes learning to be a societally responsible person. Please don't read anything of mine from before 2014. I mean, I almost feel like that a little bit with coming to Christ, but not with this ideological parasite inside your brain. This learning to be a socially responsible person. That's being a Christian. That's how you do that. Not by being a communist. Of course, it's one thing to set rigid and unforgiving rules of human conduct. It's quite another to expect anyone to live by them. What killed millennial feminism was a gap between what its high priestess demanded and what we're able to endure themselves. Yeah, I mean, it is completely untenable. It's always going to make you miserable. Anybody who really tries to live life using this sort of left-wing paradigm as a moral compass will always become unhappy, always.
She's obviously not happy. Her life is not happy, and it's her philosophy that led her there, which again is why I'm a very strong advocate of traditionalism with an Aristotelian underpinning. Just go out and try and be virtuous, do the right thing for the right reason, in a traditional manner for your civilization, and you'll be fine. That's all you need to do. That's all you need to do. Just be normal, right? Just be.
Although through the prism of Christianity, though, not just any old tradition. None of you false idol worshipping religions, you need to be on board with Christ, really. You are setting yourself up for failure. I know that you don't want to hear it, but that's the truth.
Be normal, be a good person, get on with things. Adhere to the traditional standards. The traditional standards, by the way, are there for a reason, right? They're there for a reason. They persisted for millennia for a reason. Because they are natural to us because, and this is a part that's going to come up later, we are biological organisms, and this biology informs everything going forward. We'll get back to that in a bit. Anyway, her body positivity required her to be superhuman, to be unlike every other person on the planet, entirely unaffected by waves of strangers criticizing my weight, which is why I'm still on my goddamn diet. I tell you what, it is hard shifting weight when you're in your mid-40s. Really hard. Her fans demanded that she be permanently fat and
Try putting weight on, that's even harder.
permanently happy, and guilt-tripped her for any deviation. Why can't you guys be like that? Why can't... I'd happily be absolutely gargantuan at this point. No, instead, I didn't have dessert today. I haven't had any chocolate. I didn't have any chocolate yesterday. I've been really good. I had some chocolate before because I had a bit of a failing, but whatever, right? Praise it. Don't shame me for it. Anyway, as you can see, this all fell apart. And she concludes, or nearly concludes with this. Very few traces of millennial feminism remain. Jezebel was sold off and closed. Tumblr has...
Hooray, good job. I mean, I don't know, well, probably not many will remember Jezebel, but it was just like the Mary Sue and, I don't know, Kotaku, everyone's Gizmodo, you know, these corrupted, far left-leaning outlets which didn't know how to tell the truth at all. They would only ever present lies and try and pull people to the sort of ideological left-hand side of the political compass. So I'm glad that they're gone.
Withered. The viral internet no longer reliably delivers traffic to epic takedowns of problematic figures, so hungry young freelancers have largely stopped pitching them. The publishing industry's lust for jeremiads about white feminism is over. No one has used the word girl boss unironically in years. A key feminist legal precedent, Roe v. Wade...
Maybe a couple of years, only just years. It was still quite recent, that term.
Fell in part because Ruth Bader Ginsburg refused to retire, which is true, and so basically that's the end of it. That's the end of millennial feminism. Now, millennial feminism is characterized mostly by the denial, and again, you can see it's against white feminism. Well, white being an essential characteristic, right? White being a form of feminism that concedes something to the real world. And that was the thing they came for first, remember. Intersectionality began within the feminist movement and ate up.
Yeah, it did. It did indeed. It was the feminists pushing the sectionality argument. I would say it was the feminists that were the biggest, the biggest people pushing communism as well. These things are so, are interlinked. You'll never really find many communists that aren't feminists and feminists that aren't communists and have socialist ideals as well. I don't know. They are all... the Venn diagram is a complete circle for all these, but they are so interlinked that, for the untrained eye, you would struggle to be able to tell them apart, I would.
And it ate up really quickly. Between about 2012 and 2014, intersectional feminism swept what they call white feminism. They've never called itself white feminism. Swept it aside with phenomenal speed because the prevailing axioms of intersectional feminism are essentially that, well, all of our identities are not only interlocked, but they're all kind of optional. We're actually all disciples of Judith Butler, who believes that essentially everything about our social interactions are performative, and therefore they're entirely socially constructed, and therefore they owe nothing to the biological essence that underpins them, and therefore, if they are just socially constructed fancies that we use to organize a hierarchical, patriarchal, oppressive society, well then surely we can just undo them. We just deconstruct them and deconstruct the
I mean, they would like to think we can, deconstruct them and do whatever we want to, because, I don't know, people aren't going to like me saying this, but it is a form of Satanism, to be honest. Do what thou wilt. That is all that these people are trying to do with all this, trying to, as much as they try and finagle people, it is just Satanism at the end of the day. That's all what these people are doing. The LGBT thing, trans and whatnot, it's all just Satanism.
Hierarchical oppressive society around us. And that means that we can rebuild society according to this abstract, a priori set of perfect liberal Kantian principles to not be problematic or oppressive or racist or sexist or whatever. Can we not just do that? And the answer, of course, was a flat no. Absolutely not. Because actually, you do have to owe something to the real world. You do have to concede that actually nature is pretty red in tooth and claw, and those oppressive structures around you that you were trying to tear down were the things protecting you from what was on the outside of those things. I mean, one example we can use, which is a great example, is the fact that women or young girls in Scotland now are being given rape whistles. Why? Because it turns out that men aren't the same everywhere. And a bunch of men are actually really, really, really aggressive when it comes to young girls. And the rape rate in Britain has just gone through the roof. And these people were the ones who were like, yeah, we're all the same. We don't owe anything to our biology. We're just going to reprogram these foreign men.
But they won't take this L and admit that they were wrong as well. We have to admit that they were wrong. Not everybody is the same. People from different cultures have different backwards beliefs and are not always able to assimilate into a new society when you do it at such a rapid pace.
To not be insane rapists. And, I mean, you can judge for yourself how well that's worked out. And another one is autogynephiles going into women's bathrooms. Sorry, not sure they should be allowed in. It's like, well, they identify as women.
I mean, that has been a cringe thing as well. I think that's one thing that really did break feminism and push for communism in the West, is this whole thing of not being able to admit that men can't become women and women can't become men. That is genetic impossibility. It does not exist within the human race in biology. It never has, never will. Certain other animals that can do it that aren't humans. That humans cannot change their sex, and because they've tried to push this ideology for so long, as walking up enough for the populace, it's completely wrecked them as a result of that.
And if that, then it's all socially constructed. To prove that it's socially constructed, they can come into our bathrooms. Now, again, like this is not a sustainable belief. Because actually, the term woman, the gender role, the social construct of woman, is informed by the biological realities of being a female, in contradiction and in relation to the biological realities of men being male, as in having different biology and wanting different things from one another. And so you can argue all you like about the socially constructed nature of these things, but it's not arbitrary. They weren't just made up out of nothing. They connect to something real, and you can't just take them away. Great article by Helen, by the way. And that provoked a bit of ire. You may remember Laurie Penny.
No, I don't. British journalist, writer Penny, Guardian, The Spectator, New York Times, Salon. Penny is a contributing editor at The New Statesman and author of several books. Feminism. They've also written an American television show, including The Haunting of Bly Manor and The Nevers. Never even heard of that crap. Yeah, I mean, I shouldn't have then. Yeah, it's quite annoying that she'd managed to publish multiple books and whatnot, and that she's essentially a bit of a doofus and doesn't know what she's talking about.
Now, Laurie Penny was one of the first in the trenches against Gamergate, as it says on a Wikipedia bio. I mean, you know, she's been everywhere. I'm sure it'll say that she's a feminist. Oh, sorry, she came out as genderqueer, pansexual, and polyamorous in 2015. In 2020, she preferred her pronouns were they, them. She also uses she, her pronouns, although she considers them to be less accurate. And she's a divorcee, apparently. But so she's a radical.
The jokes just write themselves, don't they? Or like, where's this going to go? I mean, that's an unfortunate frame. I've left it on Carl here. But yeah, it's just so typical. She's divorced. Oh, is she? Really?
Millennial. Feminist. She was 27, 26, that sort of age, in 2014, 2015, when this was all starting. And now she's nearly 40. She's 39, if Wikipedia is correct. So she's getting on a bit. And so she's one of the sort of Japanese World War II fighters in the trenches. Or at least you think she would be. But she responded to Helen Lewis's article with this. Millennial feminism is under this. Post-liberal anti-wokes claim another victory over an enemy they invented. What?
What? Right, so we invented this enemy. We haven't won, which is false because we have won. I've been telling the communists and the feminists that they lost the culture war now for the last at least 4 years. Yeah, just like a completely delusional article.
Sorry, the enemy we invented. Sorry, did we invent this? Did we? I don't think we did, Laurie. I don't think we invented you at all. Right? I mean, look at your profile. You're like a gender goblin, a feminist killjoy, but also they them. It's like, okay, so did I invent you being this kind of millennial feminist? What about in 2015, where you called? This video's gone, by the way, because it's too old, I guess. But the International Women's Development Agency, where you called for a bolder, braver feminism that sought the invention of new gender roles and encourages speaking out against those who deny women their rights. Sorry, did you invent any new gender roles? What was the new gender role? Name it. And you'll see something like agender. No. That's like atheism isn't a religion. Agender wouldn't be a gender. What would you come out with? Like two-spirit or something? Is that a gender? I don't know. Like you would come out with essentially mental illnesses and fetishes.
Yeah, I mean, that's been always the thing I was fought with these genders, is that they weren't actual even genders. And I know the difference between gender and sex. They were just sexual orientations dressed up through fetishes. That's all it was.
What you would call new gender roles. But what you don't have is a new prescriptive way for men and women to interact, share space, form relationships, and produce the next generation, right? You did not invent that. And what you came to was awful, as poor old Lindy West has discovered. What you came to was something that made you terribly depressed, that made your husbands cheat on you, blah, 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 right? You didn't invent any new gender roles. You just ruined the things you already had. Again, going back to Helen's point, you have failed and your movement has collapsed and no one believes it anymore, right? And you remember that she was very involved.
Yeah, there's only those that have been truly indoctrinated already that are still going to keep trying to push this, which might be some, Gen Z, sorry. Some Gen Z kids might be, foolishly still trundling down this same avenue. But I would think that the culture war has been lost on their side. We won it, and they will now be on this slow movement out. It just depends how the whole Islam thing pans out as well. That's a sort of a wild card that's been thrown into the sort of culture war mix, I would say.
And being against Gamergate and being against, was it the Rabid Puppies and the Sad Puppies and the Hugo Awards. She was very much a geek culture feminist writer, and she was popular, don't get me wrong. She had her fans.
It's weird that, because I was following Gamergate like a hawk at the time as well. I was, a meme war participant, and I do not remember it at all. She does not ring any bells.
And she wrote a book all about this, how she is complaining that mainstream feminism is so tepidly and cowardly, it should be crusading, because she noticed that actually there was starting to become resistance to this stuff, and they wanted, complete liberation for everyone, obviously. And there's a great point here where she says, look, the backlash, the right-wing backlash to this is a new culture war. It's like, yeah, but I think it's because you guys declared it. Like, you can say, oh, a victory over an enemy we invented. It's like, it seems that you're taking ownership of being the other side of this culture war. I mean, you are here going, feminism's for everyone. By the way, we need to explain feminism to everyone. We need to break down the patriarchal gender roles. And also, no, you knew you were a part of this. You called yourself a feminist. You called yourself all these things. You were a foot soldier for this for a decade. You still call yourself in the bio. We are not having that you've been like, oh, well, you've invented this. You made this up. No, we didn't. You made it up. You
you guys made this up. And this is what they do all the time. They try and gaslight you into believing that you're the one that's imagining these things. It's happened to me in the past. And again, it just goes back to the fact that I really do think this is a form of Satanism. To be able to confuse people about how their reality is and how they should negotiate their way through their reality, and tell them that things didn't occur in the past that did, or accuse them of things that didn't occur in the past, pretend that they did. It's all just a form of Satanism in my mind. And some of you not into religion might not like this. Well, tough titty, I'm giving you the facts. You can cope and conceive all you like, but God is real, and these feminists are not on God's path.
Believe it. We are just accurately characterizing you as millennial feminists, because I don't know whether you've noticed, but people have moved on, and a lot of millennial women are like, yeah, no, that was nonsense. People have moved on and don't believe it for a good reason. Now, like I said, she's
Yeah. The best thing about fighting an enemy you invented is that you get to decide when you've won. Well, why don't you decide you've won then? You invented the patriarchy. That's a completely fictitious a fictitious deity that you use to be able to say that it governs everybody. And I know that they aren't saying it's an actual deity, but that's what they do when they say that the patriarchy is the thing that's holding them back. Is it's a form of agenticity. It points the fingers at something else, so they don't have to take accountability for their own actions.
pricked by Helen Lewis's article, and I love this bit. The best thing about fighting an enemy you invented is you get to decide when you've won. Well, hang on a second. Not only did we not invent you, we didn't actually decide when you'd won. Not only did we not invent you,
I did. I decided we won a few years back. I thought that it was pretty obvious. I'd seen the finishing blows of communism. It's shrinking. It's on the way out, but not gone. Obviously, it probably never will disappear. But it's lost this round.
We didn't decide that we'd won. You did. I mean, you tweeted this out today. May I take this opportunity to congratulate all the anti-wokers for winning their precious little culture war? I mean, you started it.
Yep.
Well done, guys. Hope the liberal tears were worth it. Well, I tell you, they totally were. Right? It's been a long road. A lot of grey hairs have come from it. But yeah, no, it's been worth it. And I'm glad that we're at the end of this now. I'm glad you concede that you have lost on all of this.
Yep,
because we're quite tired of it, frankly. We've had enough. There are other important things to talk about. But you'll notice, come the end of this, that she's talking about what I guess you call them white feminists, but the gender-critical feminists, as in the TERFs, versus the intersectional feminists, of which that is the millennial feminism. Because the sort of traditional third-wave feminism is actually her mum's generation, the generation before that. Or maybe two, in fact. But the point being is that you attack the thing that's nearest to you, right? Because that's the most proximal thing. And so when they were attacking white feminism and routing it out of the feminist circles, out of left-wing circles, and taking over everything with insane wokeism, again, what we call intersectional feminism, actually, well, it turns out that couldn't sustain itself because it wasn't connected to reality. And the whole thing essentially believed that the entire world was rationally ordered and could be rationally deconstructed and reconstructed at will, which, as I've already covered, wasn't true. So that didn't work. So everyone, after a decade of watching them ruin their lives, I mean, she's divorced. I imagine that, what's her name? The fat one will also be divorced at some point. This is you guys, and obviously being depressed and not happy with how things are going, and also conceding that it's over. This is not a good argument for you guys. And J.K. Rowling and the UK Supreme Court are just like, yeah, no, there is something biologically essential between men and women. And so J.K. Rowling and the most far-right person that you can imagine both agree on one point that unites them, which is humans are biological creatures and there is something essential about that to their nature. Now, I'm not saying that J.K. Rowling believes what the most far...
Yeah, I mean, obviously they're not on the same side, and I think some leftists seem to get confused by this. They seem to think that all right wingers like J.K. Rowling, and that's not really the case at all. I wouldn't say. Just acknowledge that on one issue she has managed to see common sense. She still says sort of cringe feminist things on other topics, but at least she hasn't been a rabid man hater like she used to be.
Right, like race realist believes, but she believes the equivalent for gender. That gender has a biological component, and this means that the argument on the other side is now being had away from the millennial feminists, because people just don't believe that this is all up in the air, all ideas that descend from the heavens, that we can change at will. Actually, these are things that are emergent properties of our physical bodies. And so...
Yeah, Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you call it biological determinism, but yeah, definitely. It's had its time in its sun. The whole appeal to novelty fallacy that we all just same thing, all just change into being man or woman. Although they never seem to accept that with the race thing. It's always quite interesting that they would observe it for race or gender or sex, but wouldn't be able to apply the same for race. When using their cockamamie rules, they should have been able to, but for some reason, they obviously thought that was too preposterous. But the gender and sex thing wasn't. Completely laughable.
She agrees, yeah, no, that particular culture was over. Yeah, you lost it by being lunatics.
Yep.
The liberal anti-wokes, J.K. Rowling and the like, had a brief and distasteful moment of gloating around the time of the last US election before falling eerily quiet as the consequences became apparent. Well, what consequences? Women aren't in their Handmaid's Tale wimples or anything. I understand why in a situation like this you want to carry on fighting your last battles, but the world has moved on and the stakes have been raised in the exact way the wokes and the millennial feminists are trying to warn everyone about. Alright, so you can see the millennial feminists are a thing then. So you can see that you were a millennial feminist, you had your cultural jihad against the patriarchy, and it failed because the patriarchy is actually based on something kind of real. Not just for men, but for women as well. The reason we're not gloating about having been right all along is that it's disgusting, and we...
Well, you weren't right all along. You were wrong all along.
Everything
you ever said was wrong.
There are words for people who spend the early days of an active fascist takeover bogged down in petty rivalries. I mean, we're nowhere near an active fascist takeover. This is just... And again, so the word fascist is an interesting word for these people as well, because fascist gets applied to anyone who thinks there is something essential about a human being.
Yeah. Because especially in the UK, like, we're against the government. How can we be fascist if we're against what the government are doing? You know what I mean? It's completely illogical, and yet they always seem to make these logical arguments for why fascism should mean something else.
There's an essence there, that it is rooted in something that is unchosen, something that is inherited from nature against your will or without your control. That, to them, is the very root of fascism. And so people who concede to reality that, yeah, you seem to inherit a bunch of things, your sex, the way you physically look, the nationality that you have, the culture and the habits that you are ingrained with as a child, these are all inheritances that you didn't get to choose and you don't get to just get rid of. You're stuck with for your entire lives. The fingerprints, the birthmarks of your culture are on you and will be on you for your entire life, no matter what you do. This is fascism to them. That's what fascism is. It's to say there are aspects of a human being that are not simply able to be changed in the mind. That's what they consider fascism, ultimately, at bottom to be. And so, obviously, watching common sense conservative movements taking over the place, well, that looks like active fascism to them. So, that's oh my God, the Nazis are on the move. Yeah, of course you think that. But Helen Lewis doesn't think that because she's not mental. Because she has left your kind of feminism and realized, no, there is something intrinsic about human beings that they have to live with and just have to deal with, frankly. And that's why all of the rules that and the structures you've been trying to tear down, that's why those structures were there in the first place. That's what they were to protect you for.
Yep.
Because there is something essential about you can't just abandon, and therefore to protect people who are in these categories, biologically essential categories of men and women in particular in this case, we need these structures. You need these structures. Young women need these structures. Young men need these structures. These structures are given purpose, meaning, order, and protection to people throughout their lives. And you were attacking them. I mean, you should be ashamed of this, really. You should be deeply ashamed, which is why I suppose you began this.
Yeah, it was all fun and games while they were actively destroying the Lego house. And now that the Lego house is in bits and we're trying to put it back together, they're all crying that they lost. Like, you were the one destroying the house. We had to stop you destroying the house so we could start rebuilding it.
Yes, by saying, well, I mean, don't know what you talk about. Never heard of a millennial feminist. You've made this up. No. You know what a millennial feminist is. You are one. You know this. And you've conceded that you've lost for a good reason. What you believed was nonsense. And like I said, yeah, The liberal tears are worth it. But you know, it's good for us as well because 10 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to articulate all of this stuff in anywhere near.
Yeah, this is why I'm trying to make videos. You can maybe tell that I'm not quite as articulate as Al is at the minute and everything. I'm trying my best. Sad once you start talking into a microphone, but the more practice you get, the better you get at it. And I'm on God's path. UK will prevail. We will destroy the infection within our shores. So yeah, that's why I'm trying to get going with my YouTube channel as well. So subscribe to me if you like what I'm doing. If not, obviously, make sure you subscribe to Carl's channel, Lord Cetas, and his Sargon and Akkad Daily channels.
Yeah, the sort of fluidity. With the fluidity that I'm doing it now, I can just roll off because I've spent my time honing my craft because of people like you, Laurie. Now, you blocked me, I think, like 2015. So, fair enough. It's your prerogative. But it's you and your kind that helped sharpen us to the point we're at now. And so, really, we do owe you a debt of thanks. I mean, we do appreciate all of your sacrifices. And we appreciate the fact that you accept it's over. Anyway,
yeah, it's nice. That is a nice... It's a nice state of affairs that they have accepted that they have lost and that we have become so much better at what we do as a result of their shenanigans and tomfoolery. I myself, obviously, I don't know, I've mentioned this in some of the other videos, I was maybe on a centre-left sort of perspective, and I would have fallen, I was like in the Remain camp, not after the vote was passed and the Remain voters were calling people racists and bigots. And I was a bit like, what? But either way, all they have ever done is given us opportunities to be able to point and laugh and ridicule and really sharpen our logic against the fact that they do not present arguments which are logical and or want to be taken seriously, really. I mean, that's maybe not true. They want to be taken seriously, but they know that they shouldn't be taken seriously because they are lying and essentially leading people down a path which will make them unhappy. And they might cope and see all they like about that. That is, unfortunately, that thing that they have been doing. And we will just continue to keep getting stronger, keep pushing back, keep talking about the issues, keep joining forces. And yeah, I'm going to keep doing what I'm trying to do as well. And I'll see you in my next video. Toodaloo.